Just let Jesus into your heart. Be the best person you can be. Discern, as I said before, what gifts God's given you and use them to the best of your ability, but not for your own benefit, but for the glory of God and for the help of other people.
This is the L3 Leadership Podcast, episode number 167. What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the L3 Leadership Podcast. My name is Doug Smith, and I am the founder of L3 Leadership. We are a leadership development company devoted to helping you become the best leader that you can be. In this episode, you're going to get to hear part 2 of my interview with Bishop David Zubik. He's the Catholic bishop here in Pittsburgh, and I just want to let you guys know as the audience, I'm actually switching the way I do interviews with leaders. I'm going to try to make them shorter, and I'm going to split them into 2 different parts. The first part will always be the long part of the interview that I do, and in part 2, you'll always get to hear the lightning round, which consists of a bunch of fun questions that I ask leaders. This specific episode is a lightning round with Bishop Zubik, and you'll get to hear Bishop Zubik share about some of his favorite books, his favorite stories in the Bible, his favorite saints, what he wants to be remembered for, and so much more. If you'd like to go back and listen to my longer interview with Bishop Zubik, which I highly recommend that you do, you can go back and listen to that in episode number 166. But before we jump into the interview with Bishop Zubik, there's just a few announcements. I want to let you guys know that we recently introduced L3 Leadership membership. That's right, you can now become a member of L3 Leadership. You might say to me, well, Doug, why become a member? Because I believe every leader needs a group of leaders to go through life with that will encourage them, hold them accountable to their goals, and help them reach their potential. At L3 Leadership, we've developed a community of leaders that will help you do just that. As a member, you'll get access to our community of leaders. You'll have the ability to join a mastermind group, which I believe is absolutely critical to your success. You'll get access to extra resources, content, and a member-only forum on our member-only website. Membership's only $25 a month, and you can sign up at l3leadership.org/membership. I want to thank our sponsor, Henny Jewelers. They are a jeweler owned by my friend and mentor, John Henny. My wife, Laura, and I both got our engagement and wedding rings through Henny Jewelers, and they are just an incredible company. Not only do they have great jewelry, but they also invest in people. John gave Laura and I a book to help us prepare for our marriage, and he's been investing in me as a leader, a dad, and a husband now for many years. So if you're in need of a good jeweler, check out hennyjewelers.com. I also want to let you guys know about an amazing new leadership conference that's coming up called the Future Forward Conference. It's being held on October 24th through the 26th at Amplify Church in Pittsburgh, and it is a leadership conference for church leaders and their staff, and it's led by Amplify Senior Pastor, my friend Lee Kreitcher. I've had Lee speak at one of our events, and I've interviewed him for this podcast. He is a phenomenal leader, and what him and his leadership team have been able to do at their church has been nothing short of amazing. And so you need to sit under their leadership. I encourage you to check out the conference and check out all the great work that Amplify Church is doing. To learn more about the conference, go to futureforwardconference.com. And with all that being said, let's jump right into the interview with Bishop Zubik, and I'll be back at the end with a few announcements. With the time that we have left, I want to jump into what I call the lightning round, just some fun questions that are quick. A lot of them around personal leadership. I'm just curious, what do you... I'll ask this. I don't know if you're a reader, but if you are, what are some of your favorite books, the ones that you recommend often?
Yeah, I don't get a chance to do a whole lot of reading except for lots of the letters that I get. But I think as I took a look at that question, obviously the Bible is important, because it's the living word. Every time you read it, there's a different lesson that God gives. I think when I take a look at some of the books that I've loved in my life, I think about the book Profiles in Courage, that was written even before John Kennedy became president. And what I appreciated about that, he highlights in that book people who had the guts to stand up for their principles. Another book that I really enjoy a great deal was a little teeny book. It appears that a lot of people that it's a children's book, but it's really for adults, and it's called The Little Prince by the author Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and it had a really strong kernel of truth in it. It is only with the heart that what sees rightly, what is essential, is invisible to the eye. I also have to say that one of my brother bishops, Cardinal Dolan in New York, wrote a book that was called Priests of the Third Millennium, and I think it was a great reflection, for me, and I think any priest who reads the book about what we need to be. So those would be some of the ones that have really stayed with me.
And do you do anything other than that, intentionally to grow and develop as a leader? Or is it just going with the process?
Well, no, I think it's looking for every opportunity to learn from other people, who have inspired me. I take a look at some of my contemporaries in the Pittsburgh area whom I admire a great deal. Bob Nelkin, who's the executive director of United Way. He's responsible for a major organization that helps other people. But boy, his whole mind and heart is exactly on that. And he's such a man of joy. And another person that I admire a great deal is Esther Bush, who's the head of the Urban League, and what she does to try to tear down the walls that we build between each other as being members of different races. I think about a woman way back when I was a little kid. My dad used to talk about this woman so much, Judge Genevieve Blatt. Like, she was really a woman ahead of her time, and she had such integrity as a judge. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that she even tried to make a run for governor of Pennsylvania, but that would have been in the later part of the 1950s. But I admired her because she had strong principles, and she had strong Catholic principles. She was a member of our church. I admired her much. Another woman that has since passed and really manifested those same kind of gifts as Judge Carlos Mansman, a woman, once again, who had very strong principles and stood up for them. A very good friend of mine who happens to be a judge as well, as Judge Maureen Lally Green, a woman of great principle whom I've come to know, and she actually worked on my staff for a while. David Lawrence, a former mayor of Pittsburgh, who had the vision to say, does Pittsburgh always have to be the smoky city? And, he was responsible for the first Renaissance. He did more than just clear up a smoky city. He did more than work with business leaders to build skyscrapers. I think he was very responsible for helping Pittsburghers become very proud that we're Pittsburghers. And he made people proud. So his interest was not so much his own political ambition, but what it meant to be a leader.
I love that. Who are some of your favorite saints in the Bible? Or this is just a random question I just thought of, but favorite Bible story, character, and not even character, but person, and what did you learn from them?
Well, my two favorite stories in the Bible, all right, are the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. Right after Jesus rose from the dead. And why it's a favorite story is because they were so blind by their own opinions that they didn't recognize Jesus in their midst. And I think about that as a challenge in my own life, that sometimes I don't recognize Jesus in another person, but he's there. And the second story that's my favorite in the Bible is the washing of the feet at the Last Supper. Because Jesus, showed the apostles that it's the humility that causes us to be able to recognize the need in other people. Who are some of my favorite saints? My favorite number one saint is Saint Barnabas. There are 3 times, I believe, in the Acts of the Apostles that we meet Saint Barnabas, and what I love about him is in every one of those 3 instances, he was a bridge builder. And I think for me, if there's an icon that it's on my coat of arms as a bishop, but I hope that people would see me, as trying to build bridges. So St. Barnabas would be right up there. I think another of my favorite saints is St. Teresa, the little flower. I made reference to her a little bit earlier in our interview. She was only 22 years old when she died, but she had a simplicity of faith that reminded me of my maternal grandmother. As she was Slovak, and I always called her Baba is the way I first started calling. Then I changed and gave her a nickname of Porchy because she liked to sit on the porch. but she was a woman of very simple faith, and so Saint Teresa was that way too. And I think as I look at my life, my faith is a pretty simple faith. Another one of my favorites is Saint John, the Apostle. Because that famous scene at the Last Supper where John places his head on Jesus' chest shows that was more than just an act of affection, but it really, the image of that is he was listening to the heart of the Lord, hoping to become like him. Another one of my favorites is St. Peter, was so self-absorbed at first. And then when he really messed up in life, when he denied the Lord and let the Lord back into his life, he became a completely different kind of figure.
Excellent. A few personal questions to wrap up. If you could have coffee with your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Keep on being open. Keep on learning from other people. Keep on praying, discerning what God wants from you, and follow his lead.
Out of everything you've accomplished up until this point of your life, what would you be most proud of?
The kind of son I was. My parents, I was an only child, and breaking through the stereotype that most people have about only children, my parents never spoiled me, and I was grateful for that. And I always prayed about and thought that I would want to be there for my parents when they needed me. And I told my parents I would do that, and I made good on that promise. And I will cherish every single moment of that, especially when that became most critical and intimate, as each of them was dying. I put everything else aside to be there with them, and they knew, that along the line, anything that I could do to help them, that I would do that.
I love that.
So I think I would have to say that's the one thing that I'll cherish always, that I could be a good son, as they were tremendous parents.
And one day, looking back on your life, when you pass, what do you want people to remember you by? What do you want your legacy to be?
He did his best to help me come to know Jesus.
I love that. And my last question is very open-ended. Any advice for young leaders, or anything you want to leave us with that we didn't discuss?
Just let Jesus into your heart. Be the best person you can be. Discern, as I said before, what gifts God's given you, and use them to the best of your ability, but not for your own benefit, but for the glory of God and for the help of other people.
Thank you so much, Bishop. This was fantastic.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to my interview with Bishop Zubik. I hope it added value to your life. You can find ways to connect with him and links about everything that we discussed and more at l3leadership.org/episode 167. Also, this was part 2 of the interview. If you would like to listen to part 1, you can go back and listen to that in episode number 166. I want to take a minute and thank our sponsor, Alex Landon. Alex is a full-time realtor with Keller Williams Realty, whose team is committed to providing clients with highly effective, premier real estate experiences throughout the greater Pittsburgh region. He's a member and a supporter of L3 Leadership, and he would love the opportunity to connect with you. If you'd like to learn more about Alex and ways to connect with him, go to pittsburghpropertyshowcase.com. And as always, if this podcast adds value to your life, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe and leave a rating and review on whatever app you listen to podcasts through, and share this on social media. That really does help us grow our audience. So thank you so much for being a listener. It means so much to me. And if you want to stay up to date with everything we're doing at L3 Leadership, you can go to our website at l3leadership.org and sign up for our email list, and you'll get weekly updates with everything that we're doing. As always, I like to end with a quote, and this quote has action in it. Henry Cloud said this. He said, "Choose one interaction today and just focus on one thing only. How can I add value to them today? Then observe what happens in you and in them. Go add value to someone today." Thanks for listening and being a part of L3 Leadership. Laura and I appreciate you so much, and we'll talk to you next episode.